Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to
Hello.
Humpday Q&A with myself
We are here.
and Scott.
See, now you went the wrong way because we just went.
Yeah. Just cross the streams. Don't cross the streams.
See what happens when I let Simon drive.
So we have some guests, but we're just going to go through some of the basics quickly while we're here. So let's switch over to the good stuff. Quickly introduce ourselves. My name's Simon Lightfoot, community leader and CTO of Dev Angels London. I'll get there eventually. And you can follow me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. Scott.
I am Scott Stahl, also a community leader, organizer GDG Cleveland, and I am a house slave at Dev Angels London.
And in the background, we have Arandor. Arandor is going to be helping us with the questions. So if you have any questions, as always, make sure you have that big old queue in front of your questions. So we're going to identify in the chat, and Arandor's going to be straight out there with all guns blazing, trying to get to us. So let's just crack on quickly. Do's and don'ts, Scott.
Be nice, be respectful, be constructive. This is not Reddit. Don't post anything that's adult, rude, offensive. Don't advertise or promote your business. The big one that we constantly get is please don't post your same question over and over again. If it didn't get answered as fast as you like, it's going to be answered even more slowly if you keep posting it. If you can see it twice on the screen without scrolling, it's too fast. Then, of course, harassment of any kind is not tolerated. This includes incels, bigotry, misogyny, etc., etc.
All the bad stuff.
Yep, all that stuff. And you will be kicked out of here. And we do share ban lists. So if you get kicked out of here, don't be surprised if you can't log into Slack or just about anywhere else. Alrighty. So for some reason, Simon has jumped out. And I still need to silence my phone, apparently. But we have really cool people here this week. We have the gang from Superlist, and they have recently had their app featured at Google I/O. So that in itself is really exciting. So right now we have Iiro and we have Miguel. So guys, what on earth did you do to be able to get your app on I/O? I want to know.
We just built a very cool app, I guess.
Well, we've got one other person from Superlist who just got here in time. Ben.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, I'm not saying anything.
There you go.
We'll work this one out. And whilst we're working out the technical difficulties, sorry about dashing away there. It'd be the time that you suddenly enter a stream that the parcel gets delivered, right? It's always the way. So, if you have any questions, make sure they're entering in the chat. And I think I heard an echo there from someone. If you do get an echo, make sure you've got your headphones plugged in and turned on and all that jazz. So, what a busy week for all of us, I think. How did everyone think? What did everyone think of Google I/O and Flutter and 3.0 and all the new information?
I'm still catching up. I haven't yet gone through all the views. It's just like preparing for Google I/O, getting as much stuff ready from our end, and also resting a bit in the middle. Also sleeping every now and then. So I'm still kind of catching all the videos that the Flutter team made. And yeah, a lot of things we knew because we're kind of following closely desktop development for Flutter, but there's some nice details there that are totally worth watching. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff around desktop.
I definitely didn't get to see all the videos yet. But I have read the What's New in Flutter article and the What's New in Dart 217. One of my favorite new things, super. Instead of doing this dot, whatever, you do super dot, whatever the argument is. Oh, godsend. I've been looking for that. Since day one, I've wanted this. So this is
there are so many different times I've wanted to change a parameter in the super. And it was, how many people have taken the super class and ended up extending it into a custom class just to be able to do that. So not going to have to do any of that anymore. And I want to apologize to everyone for basically disappearing during I/O, and ever since. We had a family situation here, and I had to decide on some priorities. So it is what it is, but I'm back now.
Everyone's always understanding, so don't worry. Oh, well, that isn't the right aspect ratio I wanted it to be.
Oh, wait a minute. I see somebody else we need to drag in here. Roman, I'm going to send you a link. Get your camera and microphone ready.
You can't get away from Scott. It's got your number. I was trying to get this light to go up, but it's not going to do that. Let's put ourselves on the side. Look at this. So some of the newfangled Dart 217 features. Enum members. Right. Let's get my face is covered. This is not good. Enum members. That's another one. I forever, as far as I can remember, I forever going through and making like a custom class that just has some static consts at the top, static instances, and then having like a values array and just doing it, wrapping, basically making an enum with members yourself. So actually being able to have that in the framework, so much nicer.
So what can you do with it? Come on, it's just for people who don't understand what it is.
So there's a comment. I mean, you can kind of see this code snippet here, but an enum now can actually have a constructor and methods attached to it, right? Mm-hmm. So rather than just being a list of values, which is very important, because things like if you're trying to port some code, let's say from C or C++, you have an enum has an integer value attached to it, and that can be whatever value that you like, and it just auto increments. And these are things that you just don't get with Dart, and it's really difficult to then use enums effectively because you can't extend them very easily. So it definitely makes a big difference.
All right, and we also happen to have Roman here.
How's everyone
Roman
doing?
And I did some good work for Between the Brackets for Google. So be sure and check out the Google developer groups Between the Brackets on YouTube. Great. Anyway, okay, moving on.
We're going for super initializers. I mean, please, everyone, speak up if you've got any comments on these things. This is the content. We're all looking for. We'll give the room. We'll give the screen over to the Superlist guys to tell us all about what they've been doing, because it's really exciting in just a few minutes. Let's go through some more of these things. So tools. Has anyone actually seen any of the new lint checks? Or I know I saw a tweet from Michael Thompson. Is it Michael Thompson? I think it is. From the framework team.
Dart?
Dart team. And he said that you can do Dart fix to do the super stuff now, which is really super handy. So
I'm waiting for them to come out with a linter. You remember Pedantic and Extra Pedantic?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for them to come out with one called Migraine or Aspirin. Name it what it is, a headache.
Just imagine a joke lint roll that just underlines every single line.
Oh man.
There's a problem existing somewhere in your code. One of these lines has a problem.
I don't know how, but we forgot to get out of hell on the camera here. I thought he was already here.
Oh, sorry.
Hola, amigo.
Hey, what's up? Sorry, don't worry. I mean, I enjoying your joke, man. So I'm happy with this. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Look who's here. Fantastic. Hello there.
What's up, man? How are you?
How you doing, man? Haven't heard you. I haven't heard you talking in a while.
I haven't been able to join anywhere, and today I have an hour in my calendar, and it says Superlist, and it said I had to be there. So
if you spend it with us, that is so sweet.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we take care of a couple of quick questions? I believe should be quick. Simon, don't get too deep, and then we'll just pivot to Superlist. But one is how to handle saving data when the app is killed.
There's actually a framework built in called the restoration.
State restoration.
State restoration. I actually did. I did a talk on it. So go look up Simon Lightfoot state restoration. I'm sure you'll find the video somewhere. I don't know where it is. I can't remember who I did it for, but there's a talk in we're talking about it. There are guides. So if you look at restorable, there's a restorable mixin that you can add to stateful classes, and they give you the ability to set and restore primitive values. So like what tab you want and stuff like that, and then that will do that. If you have more complex state, then just simply when you change your state, write it to a file. There you go, to a JSON file, and then read it when the app starts. Done.
Yep. Alrighty. Keeping it moving forward. When should we prefer AOT compiled files?
Can it be used on mobile?
Can be used on the server. Well, normally, I mean, any release is going to be AOT except for web.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, you're preparing them for release, basically.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, your development is going to be just in time compiled, but your release builds should be AOT compiled. Alrighty. So moving on, Superlist. I am really, really jealous that you guys got to be on Google I/O and we didn't. So you're like super famous now.
Nah. And please don't be jealous. So, it was a bumpy ride.
Oh, everything's a bumpy ride. We just try to make it look smooth. Okay, so
do you have anything you want to show? Like, I mean, do you have the video to hand from the thing? I could play the video for everyone if you still have it.
I mean, I'm happy to show the app a little bit, like what is actually working.
Sure.
To be clear here, like not everything that you saw in the video is fully in app. Like some animations were, let's say, enhanced. Enhanced in a way that, but we're certain that we can do all of these designs, right? Like we had enough prototypes, we have figured things out, we tried things out to make sure, like, hey, it can be all there. But of course, the production value of these videos need to be at a certain level. But the majority of things are there, right? So I can show you the app a little bit. So just maybe a little bit of context. What we're trying to do is reinvent what productivity means, like in the post-COVID world, where like your personal life and your professional life are more intertwined than ever. Whereas like picking up the kids from school, cooking lunch, or fixing bug XYZ is as relevant for you, right? So we try to build a tool that is very easy to use, that allows professional tasks and personal tasks to structure it in any way and display it in any way that it makes sense to you. So we also believe that productivity is often a desktop first experience. So we're clear that we want to start with desktop. Of course, there are mobile apps, but the majority of time you're on a desktop, right? And you do certain things there. So we wanted to push towards desktop. And when we looked at it back in the days, like 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we saw like Flutter was already on the horizon. For mobile, it was well established. Desktop was very far off. But we believed in the framework. And quite frankly, I fell in love with the API. First time since I read the Ruby on Rails API back at like 15 years ago. It was the second time like I read it, like, oh man, that makes sense. This is how these APIs should be structured. So here we are using the technology and then trying to help push it forward. So
there is that kind of this. I said to someone before. There's that kind of chicken or the egg scenario in terms of if we don't use it for desktop won't be developed, right? And it's the same for all of these things, right? You need to. It only comes from community contributions and the work that everyone does on the platform together. That's going to make it drive it forward into the future with more improvements and better plugins and so on.
Exactly, and that was a bumpy ride. We knew that we set on it's a bet that very well paid off, and Google was kind enough to reward us for being in that, like in the driver's seat for a long time. Things like rich text editing just isn't possible. We said, like, and Simon, you were involved early on. It's like, it's missing. Let's just do it. And 1.5 years later, we have like Super Editor in a state where like, hey, it's great that it exists. And there's so many other areas where
these are all complex problems, right? I mean, like that text editing one is just something most people don't realize how complicated that actually is, right?
Yes.
And I posted a link to the YouTube video. I'm sorry, I put a link to the YouTube video in YouTube chat. And also, just in case for whatever reason somebody can't see it, You want to search YouTube for that phrase, take you right to the video. So you'll be able to see what's going on here.
Carry on, Ben. Sorry. Go on.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sorry about that.
No worries. I appreciate that. So it was a bumpy ride, like it's like Richard's editing, but many other things. Drag and drop from a desktop to a desktop, multi-window support. A lot of these things that are all planned, but they're not there. But that, as a business, we can't wait, right? We can't wait for these things. So we have to solve it ourselves, either within the technology. We're also incorporating Rust in certain aspects to make sure that it's just like, let's say, shortcuts to certain host level APIs are easier for us. So just figuring things out and highlighting what is missing and what we believe should be done about it, right? So we're really also fortunate that some of the API designs that Google is pushing forward, at least we're consulted early on, so like, no, we have solved it. That made sense to us. Take a look at it. Maybe it makes sense to others.
Would I say that that's like the new platform menu bar that's now come out in version 3? Is
for example,
from that, yeah. I mean, I can imagine that you can take advantage, and I mean, this is the case with most. This is the real power of FFI, and I said this last week, so I'll forgive the audience if they get glazed eyes in that right now. But the power of FFI means that you can do things like, oh, there's already some Rust code, there's already this package that does what I needed to do. Great, I'll just call that function, I'll do that thing, and it's never. Don't get me wrong, it's never like as simple as that. But you didn't have to do the development cycle to write that code, right? And it's still always going to be quicker and easier to work with that. And if it's code that you can trust, that's already been used, then go right ahead,
For example, one of the challenges for us in the near future is to have a proper on-device search engine. We're doing everything in an offline-first concept, desktop first, offline first. And therefore, you want to have a search engine and search index locally. Rust has that solved, very well solved. Like all on-device elements are so many great search engines that you can use. Just exactly the direction we're taking there. Like it's solved elsewhere. Let's make sure we use it and focus on the strength of Flutter, which is being a very good UI framework that also allows to build complex applications.
I had a question.
Got a question. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say I had a question for the Superlist guys. Like, I just wanted to say kudos to you for such a well-executed application. Like the way that they presented it there at Iiro, it was such an amazing, like it inspired me to even, again, copy a couple of the things that you guys did. So again, to my question, how did you guys execute it? Like so buttery smooth animations and cool interactions. Did you guys use, for example, like maybe, I don't know if you can share that much on like how you did it or the code, for example, as far as like animations, what was the percentage in terms of let's say implicit animated widgets, explicit animated widgets, and custom paint animated animations that you do? Or did you actually even tunneled into the Skia engine to actually even take control of every pixel on that super amazing application? So I just wanted to see like if you could share a little bit of that, like maybe also maybe people in the audience might be able to take some pointers as far as like how to tackle those animations, how well you executed it, and like how we can emulate some of your examples as well. So thank you.
Who wants to take that?
So do you have any specific animation in mind, or like is it just internal? Like...
for example, like in general, yeah, exactly. Because I don't know whether maybe you say, okay, every time, let's say when you're typing and you see that, let's say multiple users are like in the list, and you see like the cursor moving along, and there's like a little tooltip moving along, for example, like that simple animation, for example.
Yeah.
That's actually built in Super Editor. I'm not sure if the PR landed already, right? We should have had Matt to ask that question last week. So the multi-caret support, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the multi-caret support is even Super Editor, right?
Yes, we should have like a caret, like a Super Editor API for that, so that we can actually display that. How do you call it? It's like this colorful bar that somebody else is typing.
That is the one. That is the one. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
can talk to a little bit about the technical aspect of that, if you don't mind, Ben.
Of course.
Now, I was chatting to Matt about some of the stuff, and there's complexities around like just being able to lay out the text and know how to position other widgets, and there's almost like a race condition, because you need the text to lay out the other widgets, but then you need the other widgets to lay out the text. So it's a very complex interaction of widgets going on, and frankly, that's what Super Editor solves, and that's why the team is using Super Editor, right? Like, there's no one solution for that. But when it comes to the animations, I mean, I can't speak obviously about Superlist, right? But that's the power of Flutter, right? I'm going to just say that up front, right? Like the fact of the matter is, it does give you that control. And yes, things aren't always performant. And then you profile them, you test them in release. You go, okay, it's not that bad, or it's this, or I have to make a change, or I can't get that animation to work the way I want. I'm going to go customize it and go to the next level deeper. Until you do go down to that level of I'm going to animate with a custom painter because that makes sense for that scenario or that thing that I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, you want to keep it implicit. You want to keep it simple.
Yeah, like if you want to switch like an X button to something else, some other icon with a rotation and crossfade, usually you can do that with some implicit animation. But like if you see multiple things in the screen moving and they're orchestrated together, but they're kind of not at the same time, usually those are very explicit animations that somebody just like takes a lot of time to get right. Basically,
and for anyone who doesn't know, I'm sorry, but sometimes we talk, we have the disease where we start using terms in the framework all the time, and suddenly people who watch the show that are beginners can't follow anymore. Mm-hmm. Implicit animations are built-in animations, things like animated container, animated size, rotation, fade transitions. All of these things are provided for you, so you can just reach right into the toolbox and drop them in. And what they are talking about as far as explicit is you have to build your own.
And by building your own is like you have a stateful widget, and then you have one or more animation controllers, and then you might have like one or more animations that use that animation controller as a parent, and then you just like fine tune. Yeah, it's very explicit. Yeah.
So if anyone doesn't know, it's called the class called implicitly animated widget, and this you can find the documentation on the api.flutter.dev site, and in here it will list all those implicitly animated widgets we're just talking about. Like you want to animate the rotation, you can just use this rotation widget and so on. But each one of these, I don't think all of them, but they don't really let you control and orchestrate themselves. So you just change one of these parameters. Let's say here the turns, in this case because it's rotation, and it will rotate. So next time it builds, it will rotate and animate for you over this duration, this curve. And they all work this way. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the explicitly animated widgets, I'll give you an example. Most of them are called like transition, and you can also customize these yourself. But there's I'll give you an example of scale transition because it's the one that comes to mind. And a lot of these, they're called transitions. These you supply the actual animation to the widget, and then you can orchestrate all the animations together so they occur simultaneously. So it depends on what you're doing and what your requirements are, but hopefully that helps.
There's an interesting, very old but very interesting tutorial on YouTube by TensorFlow. Or Tensor. I'm sorry. He did one on staggered. He did one on staggered animations. That was really good, and it was taking a bunch of these and sequencing them and controlling them in a way that created a series of things. Okay, before we get too far away here, we've got a question for you guys, and that is, what was the biggest challenge you faced during the development of Superlist? And I'll throw another one in there. Since you haven't released yet, do you anticipate an even bigger challenge coming up? Maybe releasing to the Apple Store. That's always a fun one.
Well, Windows is also coming our way.
Yep.
I think Windows is something we have to tackle soon, and I think that will have its fair share of challenges.
I have to say, I've been doing work in Windows desktop stuff in Flutter, and it has its own fair set of challenges as all three platforms. But Tim Sneath has done a wonderful job with Win32, the package. Wonderful job. Like, without that, a lot of Windows stuff would be really difficult to do. Like, he's done all the legwork.
Yeah, probably out of
and it's really interesting to see
baby.
Tim. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, out of the 6 platforms, it's probably his baby platform because of his background, right?
Yeah, if people don't know, he came from Microsoft originally.
Yeah. So, and it's really interesting too, because Tim is a high-level manager over Flutter and Dart, and he's sitting there getting his hands dirty, writing plugins himself.
I think it's good though, like that to me feels really good from an outside perspective on Flutter, because it feels like they're not straying too far away from the the core principles and so on of Flutter. It's not just politics. It is what it is. It's development, right?
Next one.
Probably
sorry, we answer that question.
Final answer. Iiro, you want to take it? Biggest challenges?
I guess like the multi-window stuff, and then like the real-time collaboration on documents that have other pieces as well as only text. But I'm not sure if it's like a Flutter specific. Maybe the multi-window stuff is more Flutter specific, and the other one is just hard in any case, I guess.
Yeah. The other one is a few problems stacked together. It's like, first you want to do rich text editing with all the capabilities that you would like to offer. And that's already kind of complex, as Simon mentioned, and stuff that he was doing with Matt. But then you want to do real-time editing with multiple users on the same document. And that just adds a different level of complexity. And yeah, I think those things can very easily be underestimated. And like to fine-tune and cover all the corner cases, which are a gazillion. Yeah, that takes some time in. And
synchronization is hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And you always know it's going to be an interesting challenge when it starts out with the sentence, "I've got a quick question." No such thing as a quick question.
And I think if I summarize, the biggest challenge is my false or our false assumption that things are out of the box just working. Like you have rich text content in your clipboard and you paste it into a rich text document and you expect it to keep formatting, and it doesn't, because Flutter, for whatever reason, pastes plain text on desktop for the time being. All solvable, but we stumbled over a number of challenges beside our business logic, like Miguel and Iiro said. We're just like, I would like the framework to take over, and they didn't necessarily. It's all solvable, and we were happy to have highlighted these aspects. I think I was the biggest. I didn't expect that at the beginning. It's like, okay, like something that I expect, like, to name competitors here, like React Native would have just like added out of the box, right? And we had to work our way through. We still believe it's a better way now to do it that way, but it's like sometimes we worked on foundational aspects.
Pioneering. That's what it is. You're pioneering.
Another interesting thing, I guess, like is the multi-window stuff, because we do have a local SQLite database so that we can eventually also work completely offline. So that, and also that the pages load faster. But once you have multiple windows and then you have like one database, it gets a little bit like, I don't think the SQLite supports just like
concurrent writing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like it was not me, but it was somebody else in the company who was like this really same person that was doing native shell. If somebody is familiar, so it's like a Rust embedder for Flutter. Like did some things that I asked, like, okay, how does this work? And he's like, well, it's just a pipe. But maybe if we can explain it, it's like we have a web server in front of, like a local web server. That would be one option. And that was like the first idea that we would have, so that you would have a local web server written in Dart in front of the SQLite database, so that from all these multiple windows, you can write.
I see how you do that now. Yeah, I can see it. So you can do like IO pipes within processors and in most platforms. So the idea is that you've kind of got a pipe from each one of the windows going to the one master, which hosts the SQL database, so that you can stack up the requests.
Yes, and I cannot tell too much how it works because I don't know, but I just know that like you can think of it that you could achieve the same thing with the local Dart server, kind of. But the nice thing is that it's also reactive, so that you can like subscribe to a stream of a task with this ID, and from this window you update something, and this goes to this window as well.
SQLite's an awesome choice. I wrote some extensions for SQLite too, so you can actually extend SQLite with your own functionality very easily, which is another. If you need to like pull something out somewhere else and put it into your statements and have custom like functions in your SQL statements, you can really get the power that you need over that. So.
So before we move on to the next question, we've got quite the gang today. I think most of you know Majid.
He's back.
Hello.
Hey, buddy.
Hi, everyone.
Hey there.
With a haircut and no Viking beard.
I was going to say, people won't recognize you without the Viking hat and the beard.
Yeah, soon. It's coming soon.
Okay, next one. There are a couple of interesting questions here. I want to do this one and then follow it up with another interesting one that's related. How is the app structured? Are you splitting it into multiple packages, such as like a monorepo? Do you have an architecture you follow? Is it all kind of just Dart at the board?
Miguel, do you want to take over? Give some.
I can. It's so weird. Who takes the question? No, I can. Yeah, we haven't yet made, and not sure we ever will, but we're also not closing that door to actually have kind of a monorepo. It does bring some value once you want to host multiple apps from within the same project, as in you would have packages that give functionality, and you would have multiple apps, and you basically, the app package would just like place together the different other packages that they actually build the set of functionality per app. I've used this in the past. It scales really well, but we are not at that point at the moment. It's just Superlist as a single, and just for the sake of every time you go to monorepo, you'll have to understand it, you pay a cost with tooling, because Flutter by itself out of the box is not made. The Flutter tooling, the Dart tooling, is not made for monorepos. It's made for a single repo project, and yeah, taking that step, you pay a price for it, and we might do it, but not at the moment.
Well, I'm curious. What do you mean by paying a price for it? Because I know it's like in my own experience, we have made a common repo with everything common to all apps, such as the backend and the Firebase, and then you have one repo for Android and iOS, but then you have another repo for web and another repo for desktop. So what price do you pay when you try to do it that way?
On my experience, what I worked in the past, we had one repo which had, I don't know, order of 70 packages, 5 apps in there, in the same repo. It scaled up really nice, but imagine that you want to just do pubget. You have to do pubget consistently across all the packages, and all the dependencies, transitive dependencies, they have to be managed like in a proper way. You want to run tests.
You have to make sure to do common first.
Exactly, and yeah.
I was going to mention that. I was going to mention that although there is a problem, there are people in the communities. So, for example, Invitays, who run the Flutter Fire packages, had this very same problem with all the packages in Firebase, and they actually made a tool around it called Melos, which is accessible to everyone to manage monorepos, particularly Dart/Flutter mono.
But about the, I guess, like do we have an architecture that we follow? I think we are kind of following clean architecture. Yeah, we could say that we are following it, right? But we're not.
So are you packaging by type or packaging by feature, or?
Well, that's like isn't that folder structure question? We're not splitting the app into multiple packages, so we don't have like feature. We do have feature teams, but we don't have like, the document package, and then we have like, I don't know, some other. So it's like still one Flutter project. But we do have some, like, of course we use packages, but it's not like Netflix has search team, and I guess they have like a different package that they import to the main app or something. So we don't have something like that.
I mean, this is the kind of thing you mentioned Netflix. That it's not just their product; that is their company, right? That is their business, and it's grown to be huge, right? So you
Yeah.
do have that kind of infrastructure of having teams just for one feature of their service across multiple platforms, across the entire gamut. Whereas, you know, when you're dealing with an app, you can be more sort of like direct in the way that you do things.
So on a related note, someone from a .NET background, they're looking to learn best practices for large-scale production quality apps. So in other words, organizing the app, following an architecture, things like that. Can anyone think of an open source Flutter app that they could study to learn from? Something a bit larger.
I can't think of one, to be honest.
Now, most of the large ones aren't open source.
Can I add something in there? I think this is related to a question that I want to ask to for Superlist guys in here. They are like the early adopters for desktop, right? So I mean, when you think to the past, you know, Superlist was in there doing desktop before a lot of people was thinking, oh, it's not gonna be a huge deal or anything. So right now we are almost, you said, Ben, like 2 years later. So the question is, I used .NET before to do desktop. I don't want to talk in deep about that. Just gonna say I did it, and I tried a little bit of, I think the name was Electron, and I don't that into JavaScript, so I just don't keep doing it. But right now, I think we're working at adoption. So if you're looking for examples, it could be hard to find a really open source for desktop. Mobile is going to be king in Flutter for quite a while. We have examples that Mariano did for web, and a lot of people do for web. But even though we were like in the 90s, and they start to be in computers, uses desktop was the thing to do. You're gonna build the desktop. So this is start moving to mobile, to web, and then we reach out to mobile like this. So right now we're in another place where you're basically gonna be at home working. You're gonna be many months of the time with your computer. So we're moving back to desktop. So it's not gonna be hard to find a desktop app because if you think right now, many of you, which app do I need to have in my desktop? I'm not sure. If you think this through, let's say it's I don't know, Roman or Majid, which desktop that you have right now will have to have it in the desktop? Quick, something that you can say, yes. Like, it's not that hard, right? It's not that easy. Sorry, it's kind of hard to find one app that you want to have in the desktop. So this is a productivity, and it's going to help you to enhance, let's say, work balance, right? To be able to manage ECDs, to be have more time for you. Even the example that you used yesterday, just a wild meeting jump out right after I had to go for my daughter. So this is something hard to manage. Sometimes it's the productivity that Superlist is trying to aim. But if you think right now, is many other people is going to be, I'm going to do an app so they can be always connected. And sometimes it's going to be, no, you need a desktop because I don't have to be always connected. So find this. I think even though people get scared. So what will be your, this is a question for the Superlist guys. So what will be your advice to people to start moving forward for desktop? How they can choose, my app, it could be a desktop app. So it could be mobile, yes. We have Flutter, that's an easy. But how can you choose in between why desktop was your deal? You say desktop should be the first thing. It wasn't, it's gonna be hard, let's choose this. What was the decision made in that?
So one of the core principles in how we operate is like do complicated things first. We knew like building a mobile app with Flutter would be possible, right? We knew desktop, we need to prove if it's possible to do it in desktop. We also firmly believe that desktop will play more of a role. I'm personally not a fan of Electron, not a fan of all these JavaScript wrappers. I feel like an application needs to be well embedded into the host system. It needs to make sure that whatever the host system offers needs to be flawless. You need to activate muscle memory from your host system daily routines. and I can show a few examples in a minute, but making sure that we tackle those things that are unclear was let us stumble into, let's build a Flutter desktop app, and we didn't give up, basically. So I think tackling the hard part and believing that desktop is where productivity is, and that the status quo with Electron apps is just not what it's supposed to be from my point of view, at least.
I'll just add something to that. The when you asked your question, Agal, that you're talking about, like, should people start looking at desktop, right? It's like the Superlist idea. It makes sense to go, in my opinion, go desktop first, right? Because that is where you get the most productivity. That's your thing. I mean, let's say I've got a to-do list. Yeah, I might tick off a few things on my phone, but I'm not going to sit there write documents as much as I am on a desktop, right? Like, it's a different use case. And then you go, I think that's what I would say to the audience. If you've got a mobile app right now, don't just go desktop for the sake of going desktop, right? Does your app, will it work? Does it have an aspect to it that will work on desktop? And if it does, well, yeah, then then expand your app to being desktop. But don't go for no reason, right? Don't. Also, that's going to give you extra work. I mean, you've doubled, essentially doubled your platforms. You've got to now support one feature here and there potentially, right? So
let me it's a great point, Simon. Let me give you an example. Let's see if I can share my screen here. If that works.
Yeah, go ahead and bring it up.
So entire screen share. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So what does we mean with, like, why desktop first, right? Like, this is a standard list, like, where we have, like, I don't know, working with some guys from Wiredash, where we just incorporate certain things. So this is our rich text editor, where you can easily, I don't know, set headings, etc., right? So, but one use case we had in mind very early on is, okay, let's assume I want to do something in Superlist. Let me quit Superlist here for a second and open this up again. I need to quit this here to get stupid Nook. I didn't see this one here. Here it is. Have my little window here that just shows the tile that I've been working on. Let's assume I need to go into VS Code to code something, right? So I just open VS Code, and immediately you will see that my mini window here changes to the tile that are VS Code related. Just because this is what we feel like is a very desktop specific use case. So we need to tackle that to make sure what is the app in foreground, and then surface the tasks that are relevant for my current context. And if I open my linear, the same thing happened. I see all my linear tasks, right? So making sure that I understand what use case I want to optimize for, and then build toward that exact use case, because then it makes sense. Just wrapping, as Simon says, a mobile app on desktop doesn't do anything. It can be a disappointing kind of experience for the user.
It's the same thing that what happened. I feel like for me, it's the same thing that happened when tablets came out, right? Suddenly, we could put our mobile apps on tablets, but they're not designed for tablet, right? They don't have that tablet experience. And I think we might be seeing the same for a lot of iOS apps that can now work on the Apple Silicon stuff, right? On desktop, it's like, great, I can see the mobile app there, but it's not going to be the same experience. Like, especially if you're scrolling through a list with your thumb. I mean, that's a behavior that you just don't. I'm going to have to use my mouse to kind of like drag through. I don't know, like, it just doesn't work, right? So yeah, it depends on your scenario, basically.
So I think just to wrapping up, that is just because people is asking, oh, what can I say it, or what can I watch, or what can I? That's why this is hard. There's like a specific situation where you will need this desktop. So that's why it's not that easy to find desktop. But that being said, if you want to look, they're not exactly the same thing, but you can watch the web development for Flutter, and they're kind of related to. So you can gonna have the hot reload, you do desktop, and then you move to web to get this. So there are ways. So don't get scared like, oh, I don't have any place to watch any desktop related. So yeah, probably you won't have that, but you can still work with the web. And this web, any code that you see in web is probably going to be working on your desktop. So it's find the right place. I could say this at the beginning, but then I think it was a word to have conversation about the topic. That's it. Sorry, Simon, I step up.
That's all good. All right. Do we have some more questions, Scott? Unless anyone else wants to add it, of course. You're muted,
not-
Scott. Scott is saying, I have more questions always.
I was digging around for ones that are Superlist specific first. So if you asked a general question much earlier, they have been tagged. Okay, we know they're there. We're getting there. So, do you have a testing strategy? What are you testing? What kind of test do you have? How much of your code, how much coverage do you have? First of all, you're using tests, right?
Test. He wants to know all about tests.
Yeah,
with a
do
question
have
like
tests.
that, I think he's from VGV.
Yes, we do have tests. Probably you could argue, is it at the right level? And that's something which, and I'm being very transparent, I only have the metrics now. Like at some point we stopped with the CodeCov plugin and I haven't yet looked back. But the strategy currently is the following. So we have a lot of business logic around use cases. We have how we access data from local persistence, how we interact with external APIs. That's all easily unit tested. Also, the view models that you offer to the widgets, that's like it's totally Flutter agnostic, right? So pure Dart unit tests there. And then we have, and that's probably at the level where I think we would like to be, but we're not there yet, which is with the widget tests. We do invest also quite a lot, but just setting the bar high, I think not at the level. And with integration tests, we did some early explorations. In this case, Iiro did some explorations there, but we haven't yet fully committed for that approach. You get so much from unit and widget tests as a combination that it has taken us as far as we are now. But I think moving forward, we have to take that step. It's kind of just upping up our game.
I can just give some feedback on my side on that, on some of those points there, and that is, yeah, it's like we've been using Flutter Gherkin on you can define your own Gherkin rules. You pull out the variables. I want to do this with this, whatever it might be. When this happens, do that. You can just have your testers write these lovely test cases, and you just run all your integration tests and run your app all through every sort of possibility, and it's just so much nicer just about to kind of lead. So it's not all under, it's almost like developer and test role. There's a role there that someone can just write the rules, and then the testers can get on and just see what they can do out of those generic rules to make the app and test all the possible avenues that user might go through to ensure that every release is not you haven't broken something. So it might be that the functionality works, but the complex interactions between all of those things stays working, which is the difference between sort of integration testing and unit testing. They work individually, great, but do they work together? That's another problem that you need to test for.
Yeah. I think we have a work in progress branch where I explored that Gherkin stuff. So if we're talking about the same thing, so it's that cucumber syntax where
cucumber syntax. There's a actual Flutter Gherkin which uses the latest version uses the driver stuff.
Yeah. So a less technical person could write as a when I do this, then this happened in this very readable format. We did explore that in a branch, but we right now our end-to-end tests are broken because we have that. We have a let's not go into the problem why, but we're gonna fix them at some point because at some point we did have the problem that we had some of the main stuff not working sometimes. So if you log out and log back in and then you check off a task, it didn't work or something like that. So we wrote a little bit of test cases for that kind of scenario. But other than that, it's exactly this stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to bring it up because it's easier just to show a picture of what we're talking about. You have your testers write this kind of different scenarios when Maker starts game, and then you write a rule that pulls out Maker and the word game or break, these special keywords, and you can say, oh, when it matches this expression, take this and this and do something with those. So you can really, depending on how generic you make your statements, then you can really make some really complex interactions by manipulating different elements and bring them all together. So it's I find it very handy, for sure.
Also, to be clear about the challenges, as the question was asked earlier, that is a challenge for us, right? I was also expecting to be further along when it comes to integration tests. We do have a quite comprehensive test catalog that we do manual testing. We outsource that. It's a significant financial contribution for us every month to make sure that the app is working as intended, just because all of our attempts to automate it are not there yet. We're confident that we get there, right? But I think it's also very early for proper end-to-end tests. I think for mobile apps it might be easier. For desktop, it is not easy.
Well, I think that's the answer to that one. Do you have another lined up, Scott?
Oh, maybe. Here's a good one, though. This has to do with handling your apps and things over the long term. Flutter is supported for long-term project development. Every time there's a Flutter update, you need to update the plugins. So how do you manage deprecated plugins?
You fork, you fix.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was thinking about that. I'm like,
yeah, it's not unique to Flutter.
but it's also not every Flutter update you need to upgrade the plugins. Only if there's like some really big changes, like the null safety stuff or something.
Exactly. I can't. I'm trying to think of a problem where I've actually. The thing is, the other one is choose your plugins wisely, right?
And minimize them.
Heads nodding all across the board here. If you just build your app out of every single plugin you can find because they've done all the things that you want to do and you bring it all together, now you're not dependent on your code and your contribution. Now you're dependent on everyone else's code. So if it does break, what are you going to do? You can't wait for them to fix it. So you're going to have to fork it, bring it into your code base. So this is what happens with we'll go into detail, but like NPM and a few other systems that have been out there in the past, you get a package for every little thing, and then suddenly when something breaks, it trickles downhill and breaks everything because it's an interdependent of an interdependent and so on. So
another question is, do you really need to be using a plugin for this, or are you just using it because you don't feel like writing it yourself? Because then you put yourself in that position where someone else not maintaining it causes a problem for you.
Yeah, I was going to say the other side of this is, why don't you look at that plugin, see how it works, and go, oh, I see. It's not as what I thought it was, or I can make that better. You might look into it, go, oh, I can tweak that a little bit and make it my own thing. Use them as learning materials as well, right? Like you don't have to just go use someone else's plugin because it's there.
Yeah, I would like to add, like, do you ever you should build something that depends of an external package? Ever. So you're going to be working on something that's going to be yours. One time, a few years back, I was doing an interview and this guy called me, hey, you forgot the last part, just be near me. And it was like, oh, which was it? And he told me, it's an easy thing. And I just need to go there and there and that. Like, and the question was, how are you able to actually remember everything? And the question is easy because it's my code, right? It's my code. I know how it's work. I know how it's built. It's not that I am the best of it. It's because it's mine. So if you are building something and it depends from others, it will never be your product. It will be the product built by others. And that's when you get in trouble with these software updates. And as already Iiro says, or I don't remember who was the one that, so you fork and you fix it. I mean, that's another thing. Because your product is not going to be invented the wheel, right? So,
but maybe also to
fix and move forward.
But maybe just one note there, because it's also a learning to be very transparent here. You can depend on external packages. We also bring out packages you hopefully can depend on because we try to maintain it. I think upgrade, other than the null safety, was never an issue. The issue was more missing functionality or bugs or something like that. That we then either try to fix ourselves or then build it ourselves. The maturity of a lot of these packages out there are probably not where they need to be. I'm coming from an ecosystem I'm a backend developer. To be honest, I hope I can allowed to say that the Elixir packages, the Ruby packages, stuff that I work with, has a very different maturity usually than, for example, NPMs. NPMs is the exact same problem. Do proper due diligence on the package that you're using. How many maintainers? How well it's maintained? How old it is, etc. Just choose packages very widely. There's nothing wrong on depending on external packages, but just don't pick things off the shelf because some fancy animation looks exactly like you want it. It doesn't mean that it's a good package.
The other thing is,
also,
don't put a package in for one line of code, right? I mean, that's just asking for trouble, right? I will mention here. Sorry, I will mention here that something that came out recently is they changed the way you use the widget bindings in the latest version of Flutter, and it's not nullable anymore. So suddenly now you might start getting these errors in a package that depends on widgets binding, render binding, any of the bindings in Flutter, is that you suddenly start seeing this warning that you're using a non-nullable type, but it doesn't stop you from building. And if that is the case, you can speak to the authors. But one of the things that actually came up quite early on in Flutter, in the Flutter world, as it were, I think it was actually during beta. It was after the first release, the first version. They reached out to a lot of members of the community and said, we want you to fill out this survey. And one of the surveys was, do we want breaking changes? And the answer from everyone was yes, because as long as they document the breaking changes and they give you an upgrade, they give you information as to what you might need to change, right? But the problem is, if you keep a lot of functionality and a lot of features around for a long-term period, you get to where Microsoft is. We're supporting a ton of old APIs that are used in a variety of different ways, and they're actually going through very much problems right now, just trying to cut ties with the old APIs, right? With the UWP stuff, won't go there, but the point here is that to keep moving forward and keep Flutter being current, we need to make sure that we get rid of the old stuff, right? We don't want to be keeping like legacy code around in the framework for years and years and years, which means if you don't keep your app up to date, you will fall behind. But if you incrementally make your changes, you should never suddenly have like massively broken code or plugins or anything like that. So
don't end up in a situation where you have to go back and update code that was written, say, with Flutter 1.2, and it's now 2. Simon's laughing because he knows I had to do this once. Anyway, an interesting point on this with the packages, Nick Manning just recently came out with an advanced Flutter course, and as part of the Q&A, part of the FAQ on it, people are asking, why don't they use blah, blah, blah state management? Well, really what it comes down to here is simple and battle tested and less complicated. Also, they looked at a bunch of them, and in short, there are a lot of not just state management, but there are a lot of packages out there that are not maintained properly. They're not very mature, or there are some of them out there that are unbelievably complex. They try to do everything under the sun, and it turns out there really isn't a whole lot to them other than the hype. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Not naming names there, right? we're not going to say the magic word. Anyway, let's move on. Do we have some more questions, Scott?
Yes, more questions. Okay. Okay, this is more something for people who are very familiar with Android. I have not written a line of Android since before it went Kotlin. Let's say that we have precompiled Android AAR file that has a few views on it. So how do you load this from Flutter and open a view? Is there any kind of a demo that can be used for reference?
Anyway, let's say I precompiled Android AAR file and a few views on it. How can I platform views? It's documented in flutter.dev. So what you're doing is doing what every plugin does. Let's say Google Maps. There's a good example. The Google Map. Go look at the Google Maps plugin. It has a platform view. They send it across. It's how it works. The fact it's an AAR doesn't matter. It's Android. That's all that matters, right? So you make a plugin, it includes your AAR as dependency, and then you just ship back a normal Flutter view a normal platform view, an Android platform view to the Flutter framework, and that's all documented. So flutter.dev or just Google, literally Google right now, Flutter platform views, and you're going to get a bunch of content up there.
Simon's going to be very nice, and he's not going to give you a link to let me Google that for you.
Yeah, there you go. Hosting native Android and iOS views in your Flutter app with platform views. Literally documented. It's in the chat. I think the problem here is again, it's knowing what to Google for, right? So I say that, right, because I've heard the question quite a few times, but it's knowing, like, you Google for AAR something, you're going to get a load of wrong results, right? It's knowing what to Google for. So, yeah, but there you go.
Alrighty. Is this new imam
Swab.
the poor man's steeled class?
Yes.
We'll yell at you in Zoom for this later, Slav.
No, it's still classes do have a different behavior, but you could probably do some fun stuff.
We look forward to seeing what you can do with it tomorrow, Swav. All right. An interesting one here. Before we get onto this, I do want to remind everyone that Groove and Chip makes his contribution every single week.
We need more. We need more of them.
More state management. More state management.
Yep.
Why
and
not?
I like to call it YASM, yet another state management package. So
I think what Nick had in that, was it Nick's course or something?
Yeah, Nick Manning.
Yeah, I really like that answer there, because it's like, yes, why do you have to always jump on the latest one, even if it's from somebody that everybody knows? Like, it's
or you could be that developer that's always built his own.
yeah, you can be that
Matt,
one. Or
Simon.
So
Yep, Matt Carroll is a big one for that, and also Simon. So, sorry, hopefully I get your name right, Akshat. There are plenty of simple ways to do state management in Flutter. What's happening is everybody thinks that they can make their own, and now we have every different. It's like Coke, old Coke, new Coke, vanilla Coke, cherry Coke. I think there's rum flavored Coke now. So you don't have to actually put the rum in. But Provider is nice and easy to work with. As Nick had written, it's battle tested. The Flutter team still recommends it. It's a little bit more complicated to use RiverPod, but it's got better capabilities. And the reason I say that is because the guy who wrote Provider wrote RiverPod, and he says it's got better capabilities. So that's not me, that's Remy. But yeah, and things that are over the top complicated are often the things that try to do everything for you.
But to me, we do have simple state management solution,
Yeah.
like Provider or like even scoped model. My position is that we could have used that since 2017 and just be fine with it, and end of story.
I did.
But
for a while it was deprecated, but then it was brought back up again.
Yeah. So
but yeah, scope
the
model
thing.
is so simple.
Yeah, Provider has some nice utilities for like providing. Sales notifier provider is really nice, for example.
Future provider, stream provider. There's some nice wrappers around some of the basic principles in Flutter that really, really make it.
But one thing you will run into with that is it's not that easy to use to access the data from your provider outside of the UI widget tree itself. In other words, if you're trying to access it from your logic. And Roman, did you fall asleep?
No, actually, I was going to chime in. It's just that I've been like clicking the mute and, letting you guys speak, because I definitely, I just wanted to chime in as far as like the state management aspect and all of that. Like, I've already published several applications, production level applications using the Provider package. And maybe some people think that because Provider is a very simple solution, it's just they think it's not production ready, or you cannot use it like in big production level applications. Again, back to your point, Scott, is like people usually follow the hype and say, no, I need to make it really complex because complex equals production, or like big application. No, I always stress the fact that you go for the simple approach and what gets you to to put an application in front of your users the quickest. So I use Provider. Totally respect other people using RiverPod or GetX or MobX or whatever X, but try to not follow the hype and don't over-architect your application. That's
and the other
line.
Another point too. Another reason we don't have one simple way of doing it is there's no one way that fits everything. I mean, there are very few cases where Redux is the choice, but they exist.
I was going to say, just speaking on top of what Ramos has said there, it just reminded me of the fact that you can use Provider and then build on top of it, right? Like you can use any one of these things and build on top. So by all means, go check out these other things. If there's something that you like about it that you think that would suit well in your program, but you're using provider, well, build on top of provider, like that, or whatever, right? So,
but yeah,
inside joke.
I think there's simple packages for that, and I feel like I was hoping at the point when I guess it was Google I/O 18 or 19 where they're like, oh, here's provider, we recommend that. I really hope that
18.
like now we have somebody from Google saying this, so let's just go with it. I'm all for
they gave
creating
official
packages
blessing
all
in
the time.
18.
Yes, but I'm all for like have competition, like make your own packages, but there's never gonna be like the one that the community is gonna say like this is the one and this is the only one that you can use, and the rest of them is not.
So it's a bit like saying, what's your favorite color? There's one color that's better than all other colors. I mean,
well, and the other thing too, though, is if you're making a painting with your app. Okay, there is any app of any serious scale, you're almost never going to use just one state management solution. You might use Riverpod for a lot of stuff that's app wide, but within a widget, you're going to use set state. And maybe there's just one little piece of something that you need to have app wide that's off by itself. And a perfect example of this, okay, is your theme. The easiest way to do a theme is to wrap a widget way up at the top of your widget tree in a value listenable builder. And then you have your value notifier contain which theme you're using. You did not refactor that out of our app.
No.
I'll kill you later.
I was going to say theme extensions now, right? So theme extensions.
Okay.
The new API for all of this. But anyway, I think look, we always talk about state management at least once every step. That's it. No more state management.
Well, there's an actual
no more.
There's a specific question.
No. Choose one, use it. Don't change it just because somebody tweets that this is the cool thing now.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. Really.
That should be the rule of thumb. Correct.
Let's go.
Now, how to handle multiple stream providers on a screen. The first thing, multiple streams are making the app laggy. So my first question is handling multiple stream providers.
I know exactly what's happening here. In fact, our very own Randall Swartz
did
a nice video.
My first question, though, is it Riverpod or is it provider?
It's not. Let me just be clear at this. So stream building and stream providers, all the whole stream stuff. The problem you get is when you start nesting them, right? People forget that they forget initial value or put keys on those things. And what's going to happen is when you outside one build, it rebuilds that one inside. That re-listens to a new stream. That re-listens to another stream on the inside and so on. You get a cascading effect. So we just need to make sure always have an initial value. Don't build your streams inside your build methods, right? Make sure you do them in your init state or whatever. And I mean, that's about it, really. I mean, you're guaranteed if the UI rebuilds, it's going to reuse the same stream, and it's always going to have an initial value if it does get rebuilt, so that you're not just showing spinners all the time and various things like that.
And the other thing too is, does one stream depend on the other? In which case, you're using then, or if they don't depend on each other, are you using wait?
I will also mention you can use one stream provider and you use like a stream combine from like the RX Dart package where you combine all of your results from all your streams into one thing that you're sending down to whatever component needs it. There's a lot of ways to handle this. I don't know if it matters that it's BLE or not. I mean, yeah.
So, here's a fun one. WASM. Simon got all excited about this, 4 or 5 months ago when I think it was Chris Sells first wrote about it.
Was it even that long ago? It wasn't that long ago, was it?
I'm not sure. I'll tell you what, while Simon talks about this, I'm going to take care of a liquid emergency. I will be back.
In the future, can we see an implementation of Dart? In fact, yes, they announced that. So in March, when they did the Flutter roadmap, they announced that they're looking into and their support for WASM that they're working towards. The hold up on WASM support in the in Dart at the moment, as far as I understand it, or they mentioned in the roadmap, is the support for garbage collection. So there's a WASM GC, I think it's WASM GC. I won't remember the name of it specifically right now. I have to go look it up. But there's a particular WebAssembly port that includes like garbage collection. So I could actually see if I can bring this up on the stream here. Hang on. While we're briefly talking about it, there's plenty of ways of using WASM, by the way, with Dart on the web. So it's not nothing new. Anyone else have any comments about WASM? Please chime in.
I had a question for the Superlist team, and I think there's a question that is related to what I'm about to ask around performance. So
okay, hold that thought for a second. I'm just going to bring up this page, and then we can move off the topic and move on to some. Yeah, just we can then get rid of this question. So this is, I'll put the link into the chat. This is the Flutter roadmap, and they talked about the areas of focus for 2022, and one of them is particularly WASM. We also plan to expand Dart's compilation toolchain to support components of WASM contingent on a timely standardization of WASM GC. That is the one line of information I can provide to you. Anyway, so yes, it's this year we're looking to hopefully see some WASM improvements in the package. That's where I'd go with that. But also, contribute. It's open source. If you're interested in WASM, help them build WASM support and do all that. Go to WASM GC. It's an open source project and help them out. It'll get done quicker. All yours, Ron. Sorry.
Cool. No problem. Yeah. So I had a question for the team in terms of the performance of the application. So how much did you have to rely, for example, in order to keep the application very performant, you wanted to free up the main Dart isolate for the UI interactions, right? How much did you have to rely, or if you even had to rely at all, as far as creating like multiple isolates to kind of like defer a lot of like heavy executions to free up the main UI thread for like the animations or whatnot? And again, for those of you who are watching, again, remember all Dart code runs in a single isolate, which is type of like an independent thread of execution with its own memory heap, its own little event loop, and all of that. So for the team, again, did you have to rely on isolates for this application?
I think the answer is yes and no. No, in a way that we haven't really done it yet. Yes, in a way that we will look into it, because, yeah, I mean, with Android, you kind of get hit with this straight when you try to make a network request. But with Dart, because you have like this non-blocking IO, usually you can just get by this stuff a little nicely. But then all the parsing and stuff, I think it's adding up, and it's taking a little bit longer than it should. Miguel, do you have any thoughts on this stuff?
Yeah, so for desktop, currently we have this separate process, what's called Superlist helper, which runs in the background, and it handles actually a lot of the network requests. It sometimes even computes some data that make it available to the window processes, and so that one kind of takes a lot of the load. Like something changes remotely, it's handled by that process. The UI doesn't care, doesn't jank or anything because of it. There is indeed what Iiro mentioned, like so they communicate through some IPC pipe, and in order to pass that, you have to serialize data from the helper. Then on the other side, you serialize, and those things are probably where we'll have some gains using isolates just to speed that up. At the moment, I can't say out of the top of my head if there's something that will make sense to kind of offload to an isolate within the app, right? Such that it doesn't jank an animation or so. But we also haven't done like a full round of optimization there. That there's plenty of room still to actually squeeze.
I think it totally makes sense. You don't have to bring like isolates just to check off a box or something like that. I totally agree with that. Again, like people say like, oh, I'm gonna defer this to an isolate, but maybe you're even just spinning one up with no reason, like you didn't need it, so you don't want to exert more execution than you needed. So I think it makes sense.
I've seen people do this before, and I just want to mention this on the stream now. Like don't spin up isolates if you don't need to, right? Like it's too common that people read the stuff like parsing JSONs. There's a tutorial on the Flutter dev site for about parsing JSON in the background as an example of what you could do, not what you should do. There's a difference there, right? So don't, you're passing an 8 megabyte JSON file. Sure, do that in the isolate, right? But you're passing network requests. You're doing very small chunks of work, and they get interleaved with each other as coroutines on the main Dart system. I want to bring this up because this actually might be of interest to everyone here in the chat as well as people watching. That one of the Dart engineers, I forget his name, I can't even pronounce his name.
Slava.
This guy.
Yeah,
Slava. There you go. Actually, this introduction to the Dart VM, and this actually goes through a lot of how everything works under the hood. And I've pasted a link in the chat for everyone. So yeah, if you're interested in some reasons why you might do this and how that all works, there's also a really good concurrency in Dart article. And let's see, where is it? We'll find the page. Yeah, concurrency. Funny enough, I remember the title of the page. This one here, concurrency in Dart, and this also goes through some of the stuff we're talking about with the way the wait states work and the threading and the event loop and all this kind of fun stuff. So there's lots of content out there to talk about.
And I need to double down on that because, like, if we interview people for senior developer positions, etc., one of the questions we're going to ask is like, okay, how do you use a profiler? Tell me how you debug things, understand when and how things are being repainted, etc. It's so easy to put some widgets around and I just defer something somewhere. It's never the answer. You need to understand the problem. You need to understand what's going on and get to the root of things. And that is something that is not often fully understood. So if you want to prepare for an interview, make sure you know how to use the profiler.
Definitely. And to what is it, Miguel? I'm saying your name right, Miguel? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with names. Yeah, so what Miguel said about the process running in the background, I kind of find it interesting because from my background in doing desktop before mobile, yeah, it's very commonplace. You have one process in the background running most of your work and use IPC because you have multiple windows. That's a very common use case of how you do that on desktop.
But we're also going on mobile, so I think the stuff that Miguel mentioned, we might take a look at isolates because we have a bunch of data that we load initially. So maybe we need isolates, maybe we don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that was a good discussion, a segue for one of the questions that is there about the. I don't know if Scott can bring it up now. One of the questions, I think,
about the isolate one.
Yeah, the one with the isolate. Again, that's why I say I asked the question because I knew it would be a good segue into that one.
And this is kind of an interesting point. Now, if we're running multiple event loops in a single isolate, if it's in one isolate, then that sounds an awful lot like a future.
I'm gonna explain something right now. I think Ben had to go.
Well, he's still got audio on. Ben, your audio is still on. Okay, you muted.
I'll be right back. We were just out for a second.
So I won't mention that. I don't think people realize what an isolate is. It's the same code. An isolate, it's a different memory space, but it's the same code, right? So you cannot run multiple. First of all, you cannot run multiple event loops. The Dart doesn't work the way. It's one event loop per isolate. That's it. Interesting enough, Dart actually does this. It spins up multiple threads, and it will actually use multiple threads to do the Dart work. However, one isolate's worth of processing is not guaranteed to be working on the same thread. So
that kind of stop thinking.
The problem here, you got to stop thinking about threads, right? Like threads is a term for the processor to understand, not for you as the programmer to understand, right? Isolate is a more modern way of thinking about multi-processing and everything to do with that. So so you can already do parallel processing, and you can do that with coroutines, right? Mm-hmm. You spin up multiple futures, you do an await for, you do await all, future.wait all. In fact, if you spin up multiple futures and you do future.wait all, it'll run them in parallel. And what it does is it will run little chunks of each one, and it will be fine. I mean, you shouldn't have to think about parallel in that way. Go on, sorry.
Will it do that though? Like if you actually have a blocking call in one of the futures, like if you have 6 futures, and all of them have some kind of blocking call, like a while loop that exits after 1 second or something. It will not barrel, but it's like it's going to take 6 seconds to do all of that, right?
Yes and no. So the problem here is, yes, that is the case in your scenario, but in real world scenarios, you will never see that. And the reason for that is every bit of work that you do as a programmer will end up doing a system call, and a system call is always puts the thread into a wait state. So that always ends up like you waiting for like something from the network, you're waiting for something from disk. Unless it's like heavy computation, you're not going to be blocking the thread. Full stop.
Are you saying that in normal day-to-day life, I'm not computing Fibonacci?
Right, exactly, right. I mean, for the most part, like most processing, the most heavy computation is not going to be done in front of your UI, in front of your app, right? It's all about scheduling and making sure you're doing things as quickly as possible so that you don't jank up the UI and that kind of thing, right? But it's never really like I'm going to go take all this data, munch that data down, and do something with it. And that's the situation. You go, oh, I am going to spin up an isolate to do that because it's happening, and it's a one big massive task that I need to run and see what the result is. But for most, like, don't over optimize, don't go that route until you realize, oh, it's messing up my app. I'm doing profiling, and it shows me that this thing is messing up. Now I will improve my performance by moving to an isolate, right? Sorry.
That's okay. We have a couple of related points here and questions. So does the compute function manage isolates in terms of reusing them, or does it basically spin up new ones?
It now reuses them. So there's a new concept in Dart. Well, I say new. It's been around a while now. It's called isolate groups. And this is actually, the team were working on this, and with some help from Max. He's MAKS. He's a GDE in Australia or New Zealand. I believe it's Australia, and he's going to hate me for not remembering. But the idea now is that if an isolate was already running with a thread, it can easily spin up and carry on. So there's actually you can when you I'll just briefly cover this because maybe it's interesting to a few people. When you start up a new process or a new memory space, you can memory map all that memory across. It means that it's not duplicating the memory. It's using the original underlying memory from both, and it means it's really fast to set up and it's really performant. And the same goes for if you try and write to memory, you do a thing called copy on write, which is very, very much more performant. Again, it's read only. When you start using it, then it copies that page of memory and uses it. So in making these changes in the underlying system and the way that the Dart uses that, it means that they could spin up multiple isolates very, very quickly now, like 10,000 in a matter of like 10 seconds or something stupid like that. Where before it would literally take 3 seconds to start an isolate, right? It was pretty slow to actually start up an isolate before that. So, so in short, the compute function, because it used isolate.spawn and isolate.exit, these are the two key concepts that make groups work. And that concurrency in Dart article that I posted in the chat, at the bottom of that, it goes through the details about this. So hopefully that puts you to more resources.
Okay. And another one that is sort of a little bit related, async factory named constructors are not supported.
No, and I want this. I don't know if there's a ticket. I probably hit like a thumbs up next to a ticket that I want, but there's so many times I wanted this. So to be honest, the way to work around this, static method. Just make a static method in your class that returns a feature of that class, right? And that's it. You've made yourself an async constructor. Just make normal constructor a private, and that's it. You just made yourself the same thing as a factory constructor would do. It runs some code before actually calling the constructor. We don't need that feature in Dart. It makes it syntactically sugar. It would make it look nice, but that's it. It would be exactly the same as making a static function yourself. So there you go.
You know, I am trying to figure out, there was a question and it appears to have vanished.
Uh-oh.
Interesting. Well, I've never seen that before. Well, anyway, what it was a very simple question. Can you build an app like TikTok in Flutter? And here's the basic answer, okay? The answer is you want to ask the people at ByteDance, okay? Because the people at ByteDance, they have increased their productivity 33% by using Flutter. Okay, and they have a lot of different apps at ByteDance, and basically their flagship app is TikTok.
Not TikTok itself. It's a TikTok style app, right?
Well,
Sorry.
right. Can you build an app like TikTok? Ask the people who built TikTok.
Actually,
they're using Flutter.
Yeah, but is it like they disclosed whether it is developed in Flutter? Because I know that in Iiro they have a video where they show that all their internal apps are built in Flutter. So it's like,
I would imagine if it's not already built in Flutter, they probably are doing add to app. And also, yes, if you're new to Flutter, don't try to rewrite your app all at once. It's better to use what's called add to app. You rewrite a small section of your app, maybe a screen or two, put it in.
It depends. I'm going to disagree with that one. Like me personally, I think Greenfield is always the way to go. So we named that brown for Greenfield. So basically, you start with a database, we start with a completely clean code base. And for me, I feel like personally, for me, the overhead of doing add to app for each individual section or each individual screen or something like that. So.
Well, while Simon's doing that, it does. There is a point to be made, like in construction, when you build a wall and it's wrong. If any of you have ever done any kind of framing or construction, it can be a lot faster to just rip it down, throw it in the trash, and build a new one, rather than try to pull the lumber apart and move.
This is what I was going to say. Like just the process of embedding Flutter in each individual section, then handling the communication between those components and the native and everything else. That overhead of doing that can add up to taking a lot more time than just starting getting in Flutter. However, depending on your how big your code base is, depending on what it is, there's other avenues, like take your current code base, separate the back end from the front end, or make sure there's a clean line of separation, reuse that entire back end with a new front end in Flutter. There's other ways of tackling the problem. But yeah, anyway, either way, you can transition.
There's a question here I believe is aimed at Superlist. So I'm going to skip a number of people. We know we're skipping around to things that are either related to what we're talking to at the moment or things that are intended for Superlist, but we're getting to everyone. Yes, Vikas, I know. I'm getting there eventually. Sorry. This one, it looks like it is for Superlist, I do believe, John. And before I put it up here, John, come see us on Zoom soon. John coming. Good to see you're still alive.
That's nice.
And the answer to that is the latter one. We're using operational transform, or OT, for
Sorry. I just want to reread the question for those people that can't see it. Sorry. What are you using for real-time collaboration? Conflict-free replicated data type, CRTD, or operational transform, OT, or something else? Sorry, go on, Iiro.
First of all, what are those things?
Well, I cannot say too much about CRTDs. The way I understand them is like you have some data types that you can just put some data in and then eventually send to the server, and then or peer-to-peer to other clients as well, I guess. And then it just magically works. I don't know how. I cannot tell too much about it. But we're using operational transform, which is kind of the same way Google Docs and some other collaboration document editors do, where you have this. It's a little, I don't know if a couple of minutes is enough to explain it, but well, in short, we're using this library called Quill Delta Dart. Let me check if I pronounced that correctly, but it's like it's like this helper library. So in JavaScript, you also have this Quill.js editor, and then they have a specific library called Quill Delta, which is kind of at the same time is like a way to express document contents, but then it's a utility library how to do a diff between two documents, or how to kind of compose some surgical change to a document or something like that. So.
And this is a good example where you can actually rely on packages, right? So Anatoly, I think, wrote that, if I'm not mistaken. It's very well maintained, very well written. On the other hand, we have a friend from slap.com writing the Elixir back part of it, right? For Quill.js, there is an Elixir package, which is also super well maintained and documented. So it's like, hey, this is two elements that just really fit well. Didn't fully fit our use case, but are so close that we just did like, we tested the packages, they look great. We're using them, relying on them.
I do want to quickly mention, thank you for the answers, by chaps. Make sure you get your questions in. We have limited time left on the thing, so get your questions in now for Superlist or general Flutter questions. Make sure you get them in.
We have 25 minutes and currently have 5 questions, and one of them specifically aimed right at Superlist again. Can you include an audio player widget inside the text?
Not right now.
Not yet.
No one technically, why not? But like from the product side, do we want to do that? That's the other thing. Like in the document, do we want to have some audio player in line?
I tell you what I just thought of. Sorry, Ben. I just thought of a use case of like just being able to leave a voice note like on a document, just being able to say, "Oh, can you do this?" and then someone else can come along and like tick that off as a task done, or like that's I just thought that's quite powerful.
We do have that. So we do support audio recording in the application as messages. So it's not within the document, but we support attachments within documents and tasks, etc. So there's sort of big jump from a generic attachment into making sure that you have a widget to render an actual audio. There's some challenges with the challenges about the operational transfer. Like it's not the text within a document, or how do you allow real-time collaboration, etc. But it's solvable. So the use case hasn't been thought of yet.
If you look at their faces, Miguel and Iiro are both working furiously, and I'm wondering if they're trying to race to see who can put the ticket in to do an audio player inside the day. Who can get that ticket written first?
No, the cool thing is that Super Editor supports that. Like you have different types of components in Super Editor. You have a text component, you have a horizontal rule component, you have image components, and you just have this generic thing which is used for image, horizontal rule, which is, and if I get it wrong, Matt will kill me, it's box or block components. Something like it's just like this one thing which is like one blob, and selection treats it as almost as one character. And you can basically render anything you want in there. And it's just yet another node in your document, and document is made of nodes like paragraph node, image node, a custom node which we have, which is like a task within the document, and you can have a audio player there as well. So that's all supported. It depends on what the product wants indeed, but yeah, it's all doable with Super Editor.
And speaking of, one of the next packages we're going to release is exactly an audio recording and playback package. As we realize that the APIs to record audio on all platforms, including desktop, are just different to a degree that is like, let's try to unify that. Let's try to have one entry point. You can just plug it in there. And you can rock it on playback on all of the different platforms, just to make sure that you bridge properly into the native components.
Drawing, sketching, or do you want to read the question?
I just want to reread the question. So Scott, are you reading the questions?
In Superlist, do you have drawing and sketching features?
Not yet. It is on the roadmap. We know that people think about task or the thing that they have to do visually. Some people are very structured in list form. Other people are very visually. And the ability to order things in like a blank canvas, putting post-its notes, a little bit like a Miro board kind of thing, is a direction that we're exploring. Also, the ability to just draw stuff, have flow charts, etc., within the application is also a direction. So being more visual is definitely a direction. We don't have anything yet.
Okay. Let me see here. Just double checking. Okay, one more Superlist. Oh no, it's state management. Slipped in. State management disguised as a Superlist question.
You promised no state management. What do we do?
I don't know. It's the S word. What do we do with that? Well, Simon is out, so he will not see us.
Well, no, this is for Superlist though. What's Superlist using?
Okay.
I don't know. Are you using Redux?
No, we're using a provider. It's simple. It has been there for quite some time. We know that there's like Riverpod and other cool stuff, but like as long as providers is working for us, we're not. At least I hope we're not gonna just change because there's a new package from somebody else.
Yeah, don't change for the sake of change, right?
Right.
Even if there's like a, I don't know, Pro Diver package coming up, it's still fine. Like if it's working for us, we don't see a reason to switch. But of course, like I would encourage, like if you have hobby projects, just like try them all. But at work, like pick something that seems simple. It seems that you can use it, and if it works, there's no reason to really switch it.
Okay, we have. Let me see. I thought there were two. Maybe not. One I want to run by real quick. Vikas, this kind of a question, it really requires looking at the code. You're going to want to paste the code to Stack Overflow. There's really no way we can handle something like this on the show without ever seeing the code or anything.
So but the thing is, this question is nothing to do with Flutter, right? This is a question that is relating to your platform. Go look up something to do with your platform. This is not the forum for that, right? Like this is
right.
Why doesn't my notification on my Android phone? Well, go look at Android questions and answers online around notifications.
May I ask a question, because like I'm interested in that. It's like where do you see Flutter Web going? To give context, we explicitly opted against Flutter Web. We're using Elixir Live View, and we're using, let's say, the least amount of bytes necessary to render a page. And I think Flutter Web probably has quite a high threshold to be able to render a pixel. But what is your position on Flutter Web?
Well, it's already good, but again, I wouldn't want to do a whole website in it unless I absolutely had to, or if somebody absolutely wanted that. But also, don't forget WebAssembly is around the corner, and that's going to change the game entirely.
The other side of this is you do have deferred imports. There are mechanisms to split up, but there's always going to, you can split up your app. That is your code from whenever you're producing into smaller chunks for download. So you haven't got to download everything up front. So that's obviously a positive. You can do that currently. However, there is always going to be that layer of the framework that's needed to take the Flutter specific behavior, make it web behavior. And that's always going to exist if you're going to be using Flutter. I think the curious thing that I have is where server-side rendering might come into this, right? Because that has the ability to serve. Maybe there's a split in the future, and I'd like maybe there's so many options in the future, right? We can. This is not prediction. This is just me going, oh, that'd be nice, right? And that is maybe splitting off that behavior. So, like, we have all these libraries on the client side, and we treat the client side in web almost as an app processor, right? JavaScript is almost universal in this application on the client side, but you can just shove. Basically, what Flutter does is it shoves everything down to the client, right? And it says, "Client, you deal with this," just like an app, because it's designed that way, right? However, a website is the reverse of that. Normally, it's everything's on the server side, and you just show the presentation of what you want to the user. And there's a medium ground between those 2 points, which is what we see now, which is Web 2.0 or whatever, which is basically you can switch between pages, and they don't download from the server because they all came down at once, something along those lines. And I think that's the difference, right? I think it would be bad for us to see maybe the bit that's required for rendering to come down up front, which is a small layer, but maybe more of the back end processing or other stuff that don't have to download being done server side, perhaps, right? There's a bunch of different options, and I don't think any of them are going to come around the corner very quickly. But it's nice to see that there might be, there's avenues for using web, and for an app, I think it's fine.
It's great that you mentioned that, because like my point, like the service side running it might be an option, right? Like I'm obsessed with the first byte to the user, right? Like making sure that your interaction, especially on mobile device, if you go to a website, it needs to be as snappy as it can be, and that's exactly why apps are so successful, everything is already on device, right? And if you have to push that over the wire initially, it's great if there are some other options. So for us, it's currently not an option, just because like the initial load time is not very
I kind of like the idea, and it's what a lot of JavaScript libraries do, and that is you have a hosted. So when you have this, I'm just going to say, what's it called? Bootkit? No, boot. I can't remember what it's called.
Bootstrap.
Anyway, Bootstrap. Yeah, pick a library, whatever. You might have like a CDN hosted Bootstrap JS file, right? And any site that wants to use Bootstrap uses that one file. That's going to be the closest to them, and they only have to download it once because it comes from the same URL for all websites. Once they've already got that file in their browsers cached, don't have to re-download it again for that version. So what they're actually downloading is just the application-specific code, and that's another interesting split there. That means you still obviously have to download everything, but you're sharing the burden of the download between all sites built with that framework, and that's the difference there as well.
Okay, we've only got a little bit of time left and a number of questions still. We also have a comedian in the audience. Which state management is better? Funny. Actually, I do have one answer. Okay, every single state management package can fall out of being maintained. So your best state management is inherited widget. Go learn it.
Go learn that.
Use set state.
Yep.
Set state.
Okay.
There you go. Be a t-shirt.
Can we have isolates in Flutter Web? Well, Randall has already answered this. Isolates in Web are called workers, and there's a pub package for that. You know, it's the one time we don't say there's a widget for that. So, there's a package for that instead.
Yeah, so you will find. Let's put this on. Yeah, just isolate worker. So these got isolated worker and isolate worker. I think these are the two popular ones. Yeah, they don't work as is it. Identical syntax compute, but they're not the same, right? But yeah, it's very similar, and you can just treat them the same, almost irrespectively the same way. There's a few different options, but yeah, basically, yeah. I don't know how good this one is. It's recently maintained, but yeah, go search, you'll find them.
Okay. Format for animations. What format should I use, such as a game on when you win, you get coins? Figure out what animation you want. You might be able to use implicit animations for transforms.
I think I might know what this is. So this is what format?
Implicit versus explicit, or is it some?
Yeah.
Well, this is what I was going to say. But the other thing is, if you're talking about like when you win, you get coins. You might have some coins that come out from the screen or something. Well, a lot of the time, you can either live do that or you can pre-render it, right? So if you pre-render it, you you can go pick like WebM has like an alpha version, so you can have like an alpha transparency, and there's several animated things you could pre-render, ship in your app, and just play on full screen.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean like
Rive.
Coins, what does it matter? It's coins. Yeah, it's when you win coins. I don't know.
Yeah.
So like animations that it's too hard to write by hand and
I was going to say Rive is another option, right? Like using a utility that actually, you can set up your frames. It has an editor, and then you export a JSON file, pop it into your assets in your Flutter app, and then use the Rive widget to play it back. And that's the kind of things that maybe you get a coin, fade in, and then spin around on the screen or something fancy like that. Then that's the perfect scenario for that kind of thing as well.
Okay. Are features like window size for desktop implemented in Flutter? That was the plan noted in the plugins repo. Somebody's putting you on the spot, Simon.
Windows size? I don't even know what that is. I've never even heard of it. Window size for desktop? Basically it's the same. Can you change the window size in Flutter? I don't even know. What was the plan? I don't know. Not got a clue. So there is several, but just to clear, is it Bits Dojo? Bits Dojo, Bits Dojo _window is maybe what I recommend. This Bits has done. I'll bring it up on screen so you know what we're talking about. This one here, I've posted in the chat. He's done quite a lot of work in terms of giving you that kind of nice out to the edge experience, as well as you can see here, minimizing size, changing. If you need some support on desktop, there's a bunch of packages out there that have been pre-made that you can go ahead and use that can help along with your desktop experience. So if that's a generic answer.
Can we use Flutter to develop an app for Amazon Fire TV? Will there be some problems, or will everything work just like it works for web or desktop? That's an interesting question, and I think it's better aimed at the Amplify people, because I do know there are things you can do with Flutter and AWS Amplify. And the perfect person for that is a friend of ours. I just spoke to him this morning, which is Salih Goulier. And I am hoping to be able to get him on next week or the week after.
I don't know. Does anyone know what Amazon Fire TV actually uses? Is it like Android-based operating system? Because if it is, sure, go ahead. Is it web?
I think so. I think it's Android.
I mean, the thing is, I know that they drop in their support for, wasn't it running Android apps from the store or something like that? I seem to remember they dropping something. I can't remember what it was. But
I know that Amazon went on a hiring tear for Flutter developers.
The end of the day is, if it'd be very similar for them not to support one of the major platforms and all the major platforms supported by Flutter. So there you go. So probably the answer is probably. Go try it. Tell us. Write an article. Tell the community what happened.
Okay. Now, I think if we rephrase this, is it possible to have things like NPM dependency confusion? In other words, I think, can this happen in Dart?
Is this
NPM confusion?
Is this referring to the left path incident, or like dependency conflicts that we might sometimes have?
Well, I literally just Googled this, and apparently detect and prevent dependency confusion attacks on NPM. I think I know what this is. This is basically where a package is released that has the same README as an existing package that is like one letter different, like with an extra S on the end, perhaps, and it tries to steal traffic and maybe it does something dodgy or something like that. I mean, the nice thing is, like, we have people that in the pub team that will take down packages if they are malicious in any way. They have rules and it will take place. I don't see it.
And there have been a couple times when people have snagged code from one package and used it in theirs without attribution. There are also, beware of some of these sites that charge you money for templates. A couple of them are getting nailed for what they're doing is they're going around to GitHub and looking at different developers' personal projects, downloading those, and then changing the name, changing a couple lines of code, and selling it to you as if it were their own work. In fact, Iiro, I think you had that happen with one of yours.
Yeah, I think I've seen this happen multiple times. I just don't remember those sites, but I saw something like that sometime. Like template.
I don't want to try to. Well, there's also a question of one that might be going on right now too. So, and I mean, the one that I talked to you about was what, 3 years ago?
Yep, something like that.
Yeah. So this is an ongoing problem.
Is there a Dependabot or something like that for Dart already?
Don't everyone jump at once. Ben, what is Dependabot?
Oh, it's a GitHub extension that basically prevents or checks for security issues.
You bumped yourself.
You managed to mute yourself there. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah, and report security issues right away, just from the dependency tree of the packages that you have defined in your pub spec.
So basically,
I don't know.
It's just like GitHub bot. Basically, it will monitor your dependency resources, and then if there's an exploit that's mentioned for a version that you're running, then it will just notify you on GitHub. You should update your version. It is broken. It's a problem, or something such.
Okay. Is it out for Dart already? I think it's not yet, right?
I don't think I've seen anything for Dart, and I've never seen a message come from that. So, not for Dart. Not for Dart. Yeah. So,
okay. How many lines of code does Superlist app have? A lot.
Quite a lot. We haven't.
Yeah.
I will answer this. How do you count the lines of code?
CLOC. use that command line tool
with
count.
spaces, without spaces, with
Well,
comments, without comments.
No, I don't know how to.
If I just put line breaks like on every single like keyword of my statements, I can make my code 10 times, at least 10 times.
And
as many
don't
lines.
forget that IntelliJ puts an extra line, an extra empty line at the bottom of every single file, no matter how many times you try to get rid of it.
It's an option
When you
to turn
format,
it off.
it's there.
It's an option to turn it off in the settings. It's actually, it comes from days of old. Like you should always actually end your source files with an extra line to make sure the last line is processed by the compilers, because the new line is where it stops reading the line and then starts processing. Just if you wanted a bit of that archaic knowledge why it exists.
Alrighty. Let's see here. Superlist. Do you have offline support? And what's your preference in regards to local storage?
Must have missed what we spoke about earlier. Go for it.
Yeah, we don't support yet in that. We kind of try to embed that mindset. If you build something, think how it should behave if you go offline, such that at some point later on in our journey, we actually can offer that to the users. But in terms of local persistence is SQLite, as was mentioned before. But yeah, at the moment, we don't yet support that you go in your plane and you open your laptop and you start, just adding some tasks, and then you go online and it syncs with the server. We are not at that point yet.
Okay,
but
we
it's
have
something that
5
we're kind of
minutes left.
preparing.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Sorry about that, Miguel. Okay, 2 questions left, and one of them we're not going to let Simon go over time on it. First of all, which Flutter feature do you miss the most? Now, I'm not sure if that's do you wish we had or that went away.
Could be that you wish you had, right? Is there a feature from some other language or platform or framework that you've used in the past that you wish Flutter had? It's difficult. You can see this is difficult because it's like Flutter does quite a lot, and you can make it do whatever you want to do.
Well, and the other thing too is that what you don't want to. I mean, what nobody here wants to do is say, "Oh, I wish we had that," and then the other 4 people turn around and say, "Oh, there's a widget for that."
Do I miss anything from Flutter, like a feature? I don't know. I've been doing Flutter.
I can't think of anything particularly related to Flutter. I mean,
I hope that they remove the extensions method, extensions feature from the Dart language because I see it's more misused than used properly. But I don't see like what do I miss the most. It's a hard question.
Yeah,
currently,
I don't know. And folks, go ahead.
So go, yeah.
Currently, I just miss like the actual multi-window support, which is something that the team is working on. But now, like we have it through native shell, and native shell is awesome because it allows us to do that beforehand.
Yeah,
but
they just
from
did
the
they
framework.
mention that? Was it Iiro that they mentioned that, or developer keyword, or was it somewhere else? I read it just recently for multi-window support.
Yeah.
I know someone else just mentioned it within the past 2 weeks.
No, I don't know if it was mentioned during the Google I/O. I don't remember, but it
might have been something I read. Okay, and folks, we cut questions off about 10 minutes ago, just because we now have 3 minutes left, and we have a nice short little question. Somebody would just like to hear more about RX Dart.
You don't want to hear more about RX Dart.
Yeah, and Simon was speaking about it.
See, the answer is go look up the package, and then it has all this lovely readmes and information and links to every bit of content and things you want. So there you go. It's RTFM.
Yep. So hey, I do want to acknowledge our question tracker over here, Randall Schwartz. Where it is, he has a camera, I think. There we go.
He does not have a camera. It is a black screen.
No, that's interesting. Well, no, okay, there you are.
You're currently frozen for us, but thank you for joining us.
We can hear you, but
wow,
they have a still picture of Randall, but we have his voice.
Oh, there we go. right?
No, it's still the
Oh,
Kung
I'm
Fu
still-
movie version.
Yeah,
Iiro was saying that Randall is a dubbed kung fu movie.
It's
Yeah.
3 frames a second.
Anyway, I've been having fun behind the scenes and just wanted to pop in and say hello. So, hey.
Well,
enough.
Hey there.
if we didn't get to your questions this week, we'll be getting to them next week.
Yep.
And thank you, especially for Superlist and Ben and everyone to joining us.
Thank you for coming, guys. And if you folks don't realize, they came in on 1 hour's notice. And we had a plan, and of course, as most plans do, it fell apart. And thankfully, Ben and Iiro and Miguel all jumped up and came in on no notice, and we really appreciate that. And also Arahel, and of course, Roman was just in the audience. We just pulled him in out of nowhere, which reminds me, Raf, we're going to get you one of these weeks.
Yeah, thanks
Okay.
for having us. Has been a blast. So.
We really want to keep updated and see what's going on with Superlist. So make sure you keep those announcements coming. We want to. We're all rooting
by
for
the
you.
way, here's one last question for you. What did it feel like to see the Superlist put right up there on IO, knowing that 100,000, 250,000, 1 million people are going to see this? Do you realize that people are going to come up and say, "Hey, can I get a selfie with you?" when you go to conventions?
It didn't happen.
It'll only be geeky people. Like,
if you're lucky, it'll be a cute girl, or I don't know.
Nobody asked yet, but let's see. By the way, we're going to be at Flutter Vikings, just to plug that, right? Like we're going to take it over. We're going to be there. Happy to answer all the questions.
And I know that Majid also, who came in on almost no notice, he is the organizer of Flutter Vikings. Yes. And I know he's working very, very hard to try to have it in person this time. He actually had a venue paid for and everything and had to back out of it in the spring because Norway closed the borders pretty much.
And we're counting on it.
I wish we could have everybody else's faces here as well, because it's not just us three that's building it. So, but I guess there's no way to do it here. But like, it's not just us three who is building it. We have a big team.
We'll get some different people next time.
And we're happy to share updates for free. We also have like a Slack community for people interested in the product. And we're we're starting our closed beta for our API as well. So if you're interested in that, we can probably post a link later on. So be involved. We'd love to get feedback on what kind of functionality you would love to see in Superlist.
Where can people hear more about Superlist and find you?
So the link for our Superlist Slack is on the Super Editor wiki, actually on the README on Super Editor. But I'm also happy to share it in the Slack community. Other than that, we have Twitter and everything that you need to have nowadays. I'm going to open beta relatively soon. Give us another week or two to work on some animation and some performance issue and stuff like that. But we're ready to lift the curtain and let people use the app.
Okay, and wrapping up, when will Superlist have Ken board? Well, I'll tell you what. As soon as Iiro and Miguel finish writing that ticket. And with that said, Simon, are you preparing something?
Yeah. No, all I was gonna say is, make sure you go check out superlist.com and all that's fun stuff. Right. We'll see you next week. Ciao for now.
Thank you all for coming.
Bye. Thank you.